cast your minds back to the 2010 election and, of course, the coalition that came after. And you can see very, very much so from a lot of the Lib Dems that were there at the time or made it into cabinet positions or got, committee appointments, thanks to their, coalition at the time with the Conservatives. They were not treated very well. They were not treated very well at all. Of course, there is the infamous story that comes out of, Cameron would call a cabinet meeting to, start at 10 and finish at, 10:30, and Nick Clegg would arrive at 10 and be there at 10. And of course, he had his own, schedule to keep to. So he would be off by 10:30. And of course, that's when the real cabinet would leave, as well. The real, shall we say, cabinet meeting would then start at 10:30, as all the Lib Dem ministers that were there, sort of left, and the Conservatives were just left in the room by themselves as they got on, as we said, with the real cabinet meeting. So there was a lot of real foul play. And to be honest, Nick Clegg does take some of the blame. He should have been, I think, far more willing to stand up to Cameron and, of course, threaten the coalition itself. He said, if you do not, start taking it seriously, if you do not, do any of this, he should have collapsed the coalition. Unfortunately, he didn't. He wasn't, strong enough to sort of maybe do that. But there were points where he could have. And of course, he could have then brought all this out and said, well, no, look, this is how the Conservatives are treating us in coalition. Why should we coalition with these people who are treating us like this? And of course, at the next general election, who got all the blame for all the problems that they'd been facing between, 2010 and 2015? Well, of course, it was none other than the Lib Dems. So it is honestly, I think, on today of all days, where we are seeing the final candidate selection be finally locked in today. If you think you've seen campaigning yet, I think the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be super intense. Trust me, you ain't seen anything yet. And if the Conservative performance is anything to go by, things can really only get worse for them on a magnitude of scales. However, let's take a time, as we said, to have a look at Ed Davey, who honestly, for the past week, has really been living his best life by the looks of it in the pictures. Who can blame him? But behind all the smiles, the laughs, the picture of him almost losing control on a bicycle as he's going down a hill, falling off a paddleboard, there is a calculated strategy behind just what is going on, specifically where Ed Davey has been visiting. And of course, more importantly, as we saw very recently, where, shall we say, Rishi Sunak was having a bit of a small boat problem, where, of course, they passed him by on a small boat along a river. Yes, this is a far, far, far more carefully countered strategy than I think a lot of people are really giving not only Ed Davey credit for, but of course the Lib Dems themselves. I think they're doing a really good strategy on this, and that's what we're going to talk about today, which ultimately is probably going to lead to the ultimate revenge of the Lib Dems on the Conservatives after they were so poorly treated by the Conservatives in that coalition government. And what is the famous, I think, Klingon saying, revenge the dish best served cold? Well, that dish probably could be very well soon served up with a side of sewage for the Conservatives on the side. But before we get more talking into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the One Off Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button as well. I think I mentioned that as well. But anyway, click the links down below, check those out, help support the channel. You can also do that by clicking the like and share button. So I've gone a bit Yorkshire there. But anyway, back to this. So, what is Ed Davey doing? Why is he specifically been targeting seats in some quite leading Tory heartlands? I mean, these seats that he's been targeting, you're looking at Maidenhead, Henley, The Thame, Didcot, Wantage, Witney. All these seats have one thing in common. First of all, these are very strong Tory areas, but these are also Tory seats along the Thames. Because one thing that the Lib Dems have been looking at is they've come up with what they call an election profile, just as we had the Wokington Man, if you remember that from, I think it was the 2019 general election. Well, they've come up with their own one. And it is called, according to at least what we know, the Waitrose Woman. And the Waitrose Woman, of how they sort of describe her. Again, I'm sort of familiar with this because this is exactly what you do in marketing. They absolutely hate Partygate. They hate all the incompetence that they've seen, the infighting, rising taxes, and of course, predominantly, especially in that area of Oxfordshire, the Tories losing control of their Oxfordshire district councils. They are no longer in full control of those councils. So they have clearly identified that these seats are up for grabs and they are going to take them. And importantly, those seats, really strong Conservative strongholds. Now, why in particular did we also mention that the river comes up in a place here? Well, one of the things that they have clearly identified, especially with people in this area, is, of course, the river and the river pollution and the sewage problem that we have been talking about for a bit of a problem, for quite a while. And oh, fool for Rishi Sunak for picking to have a summer election. Because what problem have we seen time and time again repeated every single summer? Guess what? It's sewage problems in the river, because that's when the smell from these rivers becomes its worst. That's when people really notice that those rivers, they're actually a bit of a problem. And of course, we've seen it in the news cycle every single summer. Guess what I think could become maybe a little bit, not a major election issue, but guess what could become a significant election issue, especially in some of these seats along rivers? Sewage in the river. And that's why Ed Davey, even though you look at the photos, he's been having the absolute time of his life, generally, often now seems to be poised to targeting these seats. And we've even seen polls that could see that if tactical voting does come into play here, we've seen, different organizations throughout the UK really sort of focus on the tactical voting numbers, get out there. Compass, in particular, a big one, really pushing the campaign of winners won. So really, really, really seeing those tactical voting elements come into play, who, of course, massively benefits from a lot of these tactical voting campaigns, especially along these seats in the sort of the blue wall heartlands. It's the Lib Dems. And Ed Davey's ultimate revenge on election night will be, is the blue wall crumbled? Has it crumbled away? Has it fallen? Or have they taken enough significant safe Tory seats in the blue wall, knocking out enough of those blue bricks? Either way, the revenge of the Lib Dems is upon the Conservatives. And I think a lot of them are suddenly feeling very, very, very nervous indeed. So, as always, thank you very much for listening. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time. Click the like and share button on your way out. And of course, we'll see you all next time.